Janet Yellen headed to Capitol Hill today, kicking off her two-day congressional testimony. This will be Ms. Yellen's first public appearance in almost 2 months. I want to bring in the former White House economic advisor, Todd Buchholz, to the conversation. Todd, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Maria.
So we will get the testimony from Yellen at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So we'll get it during the show, and we'll have breaking news about it. What are you expecting out of it?
Well, I think she's got to pull back a little bit. I think the Federal Reserve Board made a big mistake in December. Their mistake was not nudging up interest rates, but how dare they think they know enough to forecast they'll be raising rates 4 times? That was hubris for which they should be struck down by the gods.
Wow.
What they should have done instead was nudged up interest rates maybe 1/8 or 1/4 of a point, and then explain they're doing this for technical reasons to help money market operations.
Yeah.
Instead of doing as they did, stating that it was a sign of strength in the economy and price pressures, and so they shouldn't have demonstrated that kind of arrogance. She needs to show more modesty and give the market a little comfort.
Yeah, which wasn't the case, because some people did get the macro story right, like Keith McCullough at Hedgeye. He knew it and had been saying it on this network for 1.5 years. So some people did know that there was a real slowdown in the economy.
But they're not serving on the Federal Reserve Board.
Right.
It seems like you're getting too many right now, so we hear from Janet Yellen today, but it seems like every person who sits on the board has come out and sometimes given contrasting views over the course of the last few weeks. I think that adds to uncertainty, and the market doesn't like uncertainty. I think if we hear from Janet Yellen today that the Fed is, again, data dependent, they're watching the data globally, they're going to depend on the data globally, I think that puts fears at ease a little bit, and I think it could cause a bit of a rally.
Well, I think that's right. Of course, they're trapped in the sense that they don't want to sound as if they're so vulnerable to wherever the market goes. They can't be driven by the market, yet we know they take that into account, and especially when the market is slapped around as it has been over the last 2 months. And by the way, at the point when they raised rates, nearly every little shred of evidence that was coming out within 30 days of that decision, before and after, was negative for the world economy.
Exactly. Well, except for the jobs report, except for the unemployment rate, and you saw wages going up at 2.5% year over year in the January jobs report. So it seems like you're saying that the Federal Reserve knew the economy wasn't great, but still said that it was, and I disagree with that.
Well, it is true. The last jobs report, the wages went up a little bit. The number of jobs were actually disappointing, if you recall. But when you look around the world economy, when you look at the individual states within the U.S. map, those being devastated by the collapse in commodity prices, that's not being offset by strength elsewhere in the economy.
Yeah, but you know what? I do think that their backs were up against the wall a bit at the end of the year. I agree they didn't necessarily see all this vibrancy, but they felt they had to raise interest rates because they were going into an election year. There was all this pressure to raise interest rates. So I think it did have more to do with them really seeing that things were so great. I don't think they did think things were so great.
If they think they're under a lot of pressure, we're in the fall, wait till this campaign continues and you've got candidates on the left and the right slamming the Federal Reserve Board and basically wanting to tear up the entire institution. Yep. So they have not yet begun to see the kind of pressure they're going to be under.
Who has the best growth plan in terms of the candidates from your standpoint?
Well,
economic growth plan.
Well, the fact is that the Republicans are fairly similar, except for Ted Cruz, who has a flat 10% tax rate. Now, if you can ask the question...
Carson has a flat tax, too.
Well, yeah, but Carson also has a flat popularity rating, which is actually not so flat, but sinking to 0. So among those that seem viable at this point, far be it for me to tell a doctor whether, his political life is viable, but I don't think it is for Ben Carson. Ted Cruz has this flat tax. You have to ask yourself, if he were to get elected, does he have a greater chance of getting that flat tax, 10% flat tax enacted than Steve Forbes did when he ran for president? I think that's a pretty tough thing to accomplish. The other candidates, including Trump, including Kasich, Rubio, and Bush, all have a pretty good tax cut plan in terms of individual tax rates.
Todd, good to see you.
Good to be with you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the book. The Price of Prosperity comes out in May.
In May. Thank you.
You got it. We'll talk more about that coming up.